we're at this point where the body is transitioning over, right, from living on muscle, which it does because it thinks, it doesn't know, doesn't think, all it knows is there's no food. So it uses the most readily available source of fuel, the most efficient way to get its needs met. The body is set up to run on glucose, on sugar. It doesn't get sugar from fat, so it uses muscle. Because it could well be, it's looking for something now, but it could well be that you find food in 2 hours. It doesn't need much muscle. But you don't find food in 2, because you're not looking for food. You've chosen to fast. Your body doesn't know that. All it knows is no fuel. There's no fuel coming in 4 hours, or 8, or 12, or 24. And by the time you get to about 48 hours or so, the average body says, let's not keep using muscle, which we want to keep, even though it's the easiest thing to do. Let's not keep doing that. Let's go over to long-term fat stores. We're going to have to switch fuel sources. It's a different type of fuel, so we're changing the process. But let's go ahead and do that now, because it's been long enough that we want to start protecting the rest of the muscle. Now again, if someone's got tons of muscle, it'll take longer to get to that point. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay? So this is what's going on. This is why we go to muscle first. All right? And again, you don't have to believe it. You're going to see it. We measured it on Sunday. We're going to measure it again on Saturday. You're going to see the muscle loss. Now the thing to keep in mind about that is most of that muscle is what? Water. The average person's close to 70%. So if you were to lose, you're not, but if you were to lose 10 pounds of muscle, it would actually be 7 pounds of water, 3 pounds of muscle. Right? It's like losing a wet kitchen sponge. You had a sponge sitting on your kitchen sink, you lose it, you think that was a pound of sponge. It wasn't. It might have been 2 ounces of sponge and 14 ounces of water. Okay, when you have a sponge again, you'll get the water. That's not a problem. Does that make sense? Okay, don't worry too much about the muscle loss. It's not a big deal. Okay? So we start switching over. It takes us 10 or 11 days to be fully in the process where it's fat. But it's never all fat. So that's how you guys are starting that over now, most of you. Sometime today, you're going to start switching over to fat. Okay? Most of you won't notice anything different. There's always some muscle consumed. Why? Well, it turns out that when we start metabolizing fat for fuel, which we have for just this purpose, we can't make sugar. So we're changing processes, and the body's running on ketones instead of sugar. And that's fine. The entire body can run on ketones, except your brain and a couple of other organs that need some sugar. We have to have some sugar. We're not getting it from fat, so what's the body do? It keeps converting some muscle into sugar. The amount of muscle converted drops considerably. Because it takes 10 or 11 days for the transition process, in the second week, you've got 3 or 4 days where your body's still transitioning. So the second week, there's going to be more muscle loss than the third week. But if you were to keep going, it would be relatively stable after week 3. It would be very little muscle. A little bit, as long as you're resting. Not very much. Okay? The more you do, the less muscle you lose, the more muscle you lose. Because some people think, I don't want to lose muscle, so I'm going to exercise while I'm fasting. Not a good idea. And you know, if you're confused about this or you're not sure about this, think about this. Does nature make mistakes? What do you think? Anybody ever seen an animal fast to heal? Anyone have this experience? Raise your hand.
Yeah.
What have you seen?
He just lied there.
What was it though? Cat, dog?
It was a dog.
Dog? Yeah. So dogs will fast anytime they're sick enough or badly enough injured. You can put food right in front of them. They won't touch it. And they can fast, by the way, depending on how big they are. They can fast for weeks, even months, if they're big enough. but they will not move. I mean, they might stretch, they might change position, but they're not going to get up and walk around. They're not going to do some exercise. They're not thinking, oh man, I've been laying here for a while, maybe I should get up and do some push-ups. They're not doing anything. Okay? They just rest. Right? Every animal will do the same thing. Just rest. My guess is if that's what's happening 25.5 million times in nature, maybe that'd be best for us too. Okay? Even without understanding why. We understand why, but even if we didn't, we got the same thing happening over and over again. It probably makes sense. Maybe it's the best way. All right? So, now, from the time we get to 10 or 11 days in, where we're running almost exclusively on fat, it's not really going to change again until we run out of fat. And for most people, that's going to take about 6 to 8 weeks to get to. Okay? 6 to 8 weeks, most people are going to be where there's no fat left. Now, obviously, that's not true for everyone. Okay? Someone who's very, very lean may not make it 6 weeks. Okay? But most people can. Most people could, and some people can go 8 weeks, and some people can go much longer. I think I've already said to you guys, my longest client fast was, anyone remember? 18.5 weeks. Okay? That was a guy who was wealthy in nutrient reserves. Okay?
Good way to put it.
All right? You don't want to be that wealthy. Not a good thing. Now, there may be time, I mean, if you think about it, most people, of course, think fasting is crazy and radical and dangerous and don't understand. We carry fat reserves. Aside from the fat we need to survive, which is around 2%, it's called essential fat. We have to have that to survive. What's your brain made of? Mostly fat, the brain. Okay, we need to have some fat. But the average woman we see here is around 30% fat. And the average guy we see here is around 20-25% fat. Who needs that much body fat? If we were living in nature, depending on where we were, maybe that would make sense. I'm not saying it would. Maybe if food was relatively hard to come by and we needed to be able to go a long time between meals. My guess is that nobody here needs to go a long time between meals. When you're home, you probably have at least a week's worth of food in your home. Right? Most people, maybe more. And I'm willing to bet most of you probably live in urban areas. And within half an hour of your home, there's probably a dozen places open 24 hours a day where you can get food if you need to. True or not true? Right? So it's no longer necessary or useful to be carrying 10 to 20 times the fat reserves we need to survive. You want to have some, but you don't want to have that much. All right?